She stood up before the waiter could clear the tiramisu, her heels scraping the hardwood floor like a warning shot. Her emerald dress caught the light, a beacon of intent that wasn't meant for me. "I'm going out tonight. Alone. Don't follow me," Emily Clark said, her voice sharp as a blade, slicing through 20 years of marriage like it was nothing but a formality. I, James Clark, sat frozen at the table in the Seattle waterfront restaurant, the Puget Sound shimmering beyond the glass. The untouched espresso in front of me had gone cold, mirroring the chill in her words. Emily, 42, clutched her purse, cheap leather with a flashy gold chain she loved, and paused only to check her reflection in her phone's dark screen. Her lips, painted a bold red, curled into a practiced smile, but her eyes were calculating, devoid of warmth. "If you try to follow me, I'll say you're stalking me," she added, the words spilling out too fast, too rehearsed, like a line she'd tested in her head a dozen times before. I didn't flinch, didn't speak. My hands stayed still, resting on the tablecloth, while my mind raced. I'd seen that look before, when she told a client a missed deadline was their fault while deleting their email thread mid-call. She was a master at rewriting reality, and tonight I was just a prop in her script. Emily walked out, her hips swaying like she was on a catwalk, each step a performance for an audience that wasn't me. The dress, the bergamot perfume she hadn't worn in years, the heels she always complained hurt her back. None of it was for me. I was the excuse, the necessary backdrop for whatever came next. The restaurant buzzed softly around me. Edison bulbs cast a warm, nostalgic glow, but it felt hollow. A family sat nearby, mom, dad, 2 kids. The little girl, maybe 8, kept glancing at me between bites of cheesecake, her eyes wide, like I was part of the evening's exhibit. I realized I hadn't touched my pasta. The plate sat there, accusingly untouched, as I nodded to the waiter. "Check, please," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. Emily thought she was in control, that her exit was flawless. But she forgot who she was dealing with. I'm a programmer, 45 years old, with 2 decades of untangling digital chaos. Code doesn't lie, and neither do patterns. I'd noticed them for months. The way she stopped asking if I wanted coffee in the mornings, the way her tablet was always locked when she stepped away, even for a moment, the bergamot perfume bottle that moved from the bathroom shelf to her purse. The night she came home with smudged lipstick, laughing it off as too much fun at a client dinner. I'd rationalized it all: stress, work, routine, aging. The soft lies we tell ourselves to avoid the truth. But tonight there was no lie, no pretense. She didn't even bother to hide it. She'd flipped the script, casting me as the paranoid husband, the potential stalker, the fool who'd chase her into her carefully curated trap. Except I hadn't said a word about following her. I didn't need to, because while Emily thought she was outplaying me, she forgot one thing. I write code for a living. And 5 years ago, she logged into her Gmail on my old work laptop, not knowing it was set to sync local data before wiping. It wasn't suspicion then, just good digital hygiene. But the backup stayed encrypted, archived, forgotten by her. Not by me. The waiter slid the check into a sleek leather folder, his face neutral. He didn't ask if everything was okay. He didn't need to. The empty plate, the cold espresso, and the absence of my wife spoke louder than words. As he walked away, I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out my phone. My fingers moved with purpose, opening a folder labeled Legacy. Not photos, not notes, legacy. Nested inside layers of password prompts was an app I'd built years ago, back when I didn't trust third-party cloud storage. Too many backdoors, I'd tell clients with a half-smile. So I created my own, an encrypted shell that synced any account touched by a device I flagged. Invisible unless you knew the hotkey. Emily had used my laptop once, years ago, when hers crashed before a proposal deadline. I hadn't thought much of it then, but the sync stayed active, silent, waiting. Tonight it was awake, 2 taps, 1 long hold. Prompt blinked. Intervault key. I typed it from memory, her birthday backward, plus the code to our old Portland apartment. The screen unlocked with a soft click, like a safe cracking open in a heist movie. And then it poured out. Folders with nonsense names, vacation ideas, fitness plans, budget. But inside, no travel itineraries or yoga schedules. Photos, videos, browser captures, conversations, burner accounts. A second life, meticulously organized, tagged, dated. She wasn't just cheating. She was curating it like some twisted digital scrapbook. One folder stood out, not for its name but for its icon. A blurry thumbnail, familiar in a way that made my stomach twist. I tapped it. Screenshots, private messages, selfies in hotel rooms, captions with winks and emojis, timestamps stretching back months, and a username I hadn't heard in years. Midnight_Matt. Matthew Bryant, her ex-fiancé, the one who vanished a month before their wedding, leaving her with nothing but a story she swore she'd buried. She told me early on that he didn't deserve oxygen. Yet here he was, alive in her chats, her plans, her nights. One message, sent that afternoon, burned into my screen. Tonight, no more hiding. Let's make it official. I've waited long enough. Our anniversary dinner was her alibi, a matinee before the real show. I was the fool meant to pay the bill and drive home, hoping she'd come to her senses. But she never planned to. I closed the phone, the check still unpaid, and stared out at the Puget Sound. The water was calm, but inside me, a storm was just beginning. The Puget Sound glittered beyond the restaurant window, but my eyes were locked on my phone, the glow of the screen pulling me into a truth I'd avoided for too long. Emily thought she'd outsmarted me, but she forgot the first rule of code. Nothing is ever truly deleted. I, James Clark, sat in the dim light of the Seattle waterfront restaurant, the leather check folder still unopened on the table. The waiter hadn't returned, giving me a moment to dive deeper into the digital vault I'd unlocked. My app, a relic from my paranoid 20s when I distrusted cloud services, was a ghost in the machine, silent, invisible, and now alive with Emily's secrets. 5 years ago, she'd logged into her Gmail on my old work laptop, a desperate move before a client deadline when her own device crashed. I'd set up that laptop to sync all account data locally before wiping, a precaution I called digital hygiene. She didn't know. The backup sat encrypted in a folder labeled Legacy, untouched until tonight. The app's interface blinked open after I entered the key, her birthday backward plus our old Portland apartment code. Folders spilled across the screen, their names mundane, vacation ideas, budget 2023, wellness goals, camouflage. I tapped one and the facade crumbled. No travel plans or spreadsheets. Instead, photos, videos, browser screenshots, and chat logs, all meticulously organized like a museum of betrayal. My pulse quickened, not from shock but from recognition. This wasn't a fling. This was a curated double life. One folder, marked with a blurry thumbnail of a hotel bar, stopped me cold. I opened it and my stomach churned. Screenshots of private messages, selfies of Emily in dimly lit rooms, her smile coy, her dress, always that emerald green, slipping off one shoulder. Captions laced with winks and heart emojis. And the recipient, Midnight_Matt. Matthew Bryant, her ex-fiancé, the man who ghosted her a month before their wedding 12 years ago. She'd sworn he was a closed chapter, not worth the air he breathed. Yet here he was woven into her digital world, his replies flirty, intimate, alive. Their chats stretched back 6 months, starting innocent, nostalgic banter about old college nights in Portland, near misses. What could have been? But they turned sharp, deliberate. He's so predictable. Still thinks I'm just stressed from work, she wrote, with a laughing emoji. James wouldn't notice if I changed my name and moved to Miami. My jaw tightened. Another message, from this afternoon. Tonight's the night, Matt. No more sneaking. Let's make it real. The anniversary dinner wasn't a celebration. It was her exit strategy, a staged performance to keep me in the dark while she rewrote our story. I scrolled further, each message a pinprick. Receipts for hotel stays labeled client meetings. Uber rides to addresses in Bellevue I didn't recognize. A flower delivery to herself, timed with a text to me, "Swamped at work, don't wait up." Every lie was documented, time-stamped, IP tracked to her phone, her tablet, even her smartwatch. She hadn't just betrayed me, she'd built a system to manage it. But the real gut punch was a video, buried in a subfolder tagged, "for M." I hesitated, my thumb hovering over the play button. The thumbnail showed Emily, her hair loose, laughing in a way I hadn't heard in years. I tapped it. The footage was grainy. A hotel room with soft lighting. Her voice low and teasing. "This is for you, Matt. Wait till you see me tonight." She winked, the emerald dress slipping further. The video cut off after 10 seconds, but it was enough. My chest tightened, not with sadness but with clarity. This wasn't a mistake. It was a plan. I closed the app, the screen dimming as the waiter finally returned. "Everything okay, sir?" he asked, his tone polite but cautious. I nodded, sliding my card into the leather folder without looking at the total. "Just settling up," I said, my voice calm, betraying nothing. He walked away, and I leaned back, staring at the phone. Emily thought she was writing the script, casting me as the clueless husband who'd sit home, waiting. But she didn't know I'd been reading her lines all along. The folder had one more file, a calendar entry labeled, "Closure Dinner with M," dated 6 weeks ago. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment betrayal. It was a campaign, mapped out while I was fixing her Wi-Fi or paying the bills. And Matthew? He wasn't just a ghost from her past. He was her co-author, enjoying every chapter of their sequel. I didn't need to follow her tonight. The trail was already there, glowing in the data. I stood, leaving the restaurant behind, the Puget Sound fading into the night. My car was parked 3 blocks away, in a quiet corner of Capitol Hill. I slid into the driver's seat, the engine off, the silence heavy. The fast food bag I'd grabbed on instinct sat unopened beside me, its greasy smell mixing with the rain-soaked air. My phone rested on the dashboard, a ticking bomb. At 1:57 a.m., I opened another app, one I'd built myself. A discreet security system, patched to a local server Emily didn't know existed. She thought I'd disabled the porch cameras after a squirrel tripped the motion sensor last year. I let her believe it. The feed flickered to life. The porch light buzzed on, casting a harsh glow. Then, at 2:03 a.m., her shadow appeared, long and wobbly, followed by Emily herself, stumbling in those heels, laughing. Not drunk, but giddy. Beside her, a man in a black leather jacket, his posture unmistakable. Square shoulders, loose arms, like consequences didn't exist. Matthew Bryant, the man who broke her heart, who didn't deserve closure, now standing on my porch with my wife. The porch light flickered on my phone screen, casting Emily and Matthew in a stark, unforgiving glow. She thought she was untouchable, but I'd already rewritten the rules of her game. I, James Clark, sat in my car 3 blocks from our Capitol Hill home, the Seattle night heavy with the scent of rain-soaked asphalt. The fast food bag beside me was untouched, a pointless prop in a moment that demanded focus. My phone, resting on the dashboard, was no longer just a device. It was a weapon, one I'd forged years ago in a younger, more paranoid version of myself. Emily had no idea that every move she made tonight was pinging my server, feeding me her digital footprints in real time. At 2:03 a.m., the porch camera feed showed her fumbling with the keypad, her heels clicking unevenly as she laughed, still giddy from whatever fantasy she was chasing. Matthew, in his black leather jacket, leaned close, whispering something that made her giggle harder. She tried the door code. Red light. Tried again. Read again. Her laughter faltered, replaced by a nervous frown as she glanced at her phone, thumbs dancing across the screen. Matthew said something sharp, his posture shifting to irritation. I smiled, just a little. The code didn't work because I'd changed it an hour ago, right after she left the restaurant. But it wasn't just the door. I'd rewritten the entire back end of our home system months earlier, after the third time Emily forgot to disarm the alarm and blamed it on a glitch. She thought I was a relic, a semi-retired IT guy who tinkered with code for nostalgia. She didn't know I'd replaced the firmware, bypassed the official app, and built a silent admin override only I could access. Every camera, every light, every lock mine. Her phone buzzed as she tried to reconnect to the home network, but it was a trap. I'd set up a honeypot Wi-Fi, same SSID, different rules. Every login attempt, every keystroke, fed back to my server, not hers. Authentication failed. Access denied. Emily's thumbs moved faster, her face tightening under the porch light. Matthew jabbed at the keypad himself, as if brute force could outsmart my code. The red light blinked again, mocking them. She called me at 2:11 a.m. The phone vibrated once in my hand. I let it ring, then pressed decline. No voicemail, no response, just silence. She stared at the door, blinking like the house itself had betrayed her. Matthew lit a cigarette, stepping back, his irritation now plain. I tapped my screen, saving a screenshot. 2 figures, 1 locked-out plan caught in high definition. Back in the restaurant, I'd seen enough in her digital trail to know this wasn't a one-night slip. Her cloud backup, synced through my app, held a folder labeled Miscellaneous Archive. Inside, a calendar entry, Closure Dinner with M. Dated 6 weeks ago. She'd been orchestrating this for months, right under my roof, while I fixed her laptop or paid the mortgage. But I wasn't the clueless husband she thought. I was patient, methodical, and I'd been planning too. By 3:15 a.m., I was in my home office, a small room in our basement Emily never entered. 3 monitors glowed, my server humming softly under the desk. I opened the admin panel for our home network and revoked her access entirely. Cameras, locks, even the garage door, her credentials were void. Then I moved to her business. Emily ran an online gallery, Empower Aesthetics, a chic front for selling abstract prints and coaching women on digital femininity. But it was more, a funnel for private subscriptions, drop-shipped products, and auto-billing templates tied to accounts she hid from me. Our LLC, Clark Concepts, owned the gallery's domain, lease, and assets. 4 years ago, I'd set it up to streamline her taxes, holding 51% in my name, just in case. She never checked the fine print. At 1:40 a.m., while Emily was giggling on the porch, I'd filed an amendment online, transferring full management rights to myself. 18 minutes, mostly autofill. Then I logged into the tenant portal for her co-working space in downtown Seattle, The Nest. I submitted my verification docs and revoked her badge access. Her office, her brand, her empire, locked out with a few clicks. By 4:02 a.m., I'd rerouted her gallery's admin email to a proxy I controlled. Passwords reset. 2-factor authentication switched to a burner number I kept for emergencies. She'd laughed when I refused to toss that phone, calling me paranoid. Now it was her lifeline, and it answered to me. Her quaint little site, with its floral logo and vague mission statement, was no longer hers. I didn't stop there. Her Google business profile, her Stripe account, her Shopify storefront, all tied to the LLC, all now under my name. I leaned back, the monitors casting a cold glow. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reclaiming what was mine. Emily thought she was scripting her grand exit, but she'd walked into a sandbox of her own making. Every tap on her phone, every failed login, was a signal to my system. Access denied. Try again. She was locked out of her own life, and she didn't even know it yet. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the street slick and silent. My coffee was lukewarm, but I didn't care. The hum of my server felt like a pulse, steady and controlled. Emily's shadow was long gone from the porch feed, but I knew where she'd be by morning. Scrambling, confused, realizing too late that her carefully built world was no longer hers. I closed my laptop, the screen fading to black, and for the first time in months, I felt the weight lift. Not anger, not sadness, just clarity. Emily's empire crumbled under the weight of her own lies, and I watched it unfold from the shadows of my server's glow. Every click she made, every desperate attempt to regain control, only tightened the noose I'd coded around her. At 6:47 a.m., the gas station in Bellevue was quiet, the early morning mist clinging to the pavement. Emily stood at pump 4, her emerald dress now crumpled, creased in all the wrong places, her makeup smudged like a bad watercolor. She swiped her card at the reader. Declined. She stared at the screen, as if it had personally insulted her, and tried again. Declined. A guy in a pickup truck behind her honked, sharp and impatient. She flinched, stepping aside, fumbling in her purse for another card. The backup tied to our joint account. She didn't know I'd disconnected it at 2:30 a.m., right after she stumbled off our porch with Matthew. Transaction failed. Her phone buzzed with a text from her assistant. Lauren. Hey, Emily. Weird issue. The gallery site's down. Says password reset and we've lost admin access. Did you change something? Emily's face tightened, her thumbs flying over the screen as she tried to log into her online gallery, Empower Aesthetics. It wasn't just a business. It was her secret playground, a front for private subscriptions, drop-shipped products, and auto-billing schemes she thought I'd never notice. But I had. The site's admin email was now rerouted to admin@clarktroll.com, my domain. The password was changed, two-factor authentication reset to my burner number. She tried the recovery flow. Enter the last 4 digits of the registered phone. She didn't recognize the number. Of course she didn't. It was mine. At 7:19 a.m., Emily called Lauren, her voice sharp with panic. Don't touch anything. I'll fix it, she snapped. But it was too late. At 7:04 a.m., I'd sent a mass email from the gallery's new admin account to its subscriber list. Not just clients, but her mother, her college friend Sarah, and the chair of her women's business network. The email was a curated digest of her premium content. Screenshots of her flirty chats with Matthew, receipts for hotel stays, and a teaser about her empowered lifestyle. Nothing illegal, just enough to unravel her carefully crafted image. Her mother called at 7:35 a.m. The conversation was loud, raw, full of, "What is this? And is this why you've been dodging family dinners?" Emily's inbox lit up. Payment providers, customer complaints, a flagged transaction from a boutique in Scottsdale. Her empire was bleeding out, and the world was watching. By 8:05 a.m., Emily was speeding through Seattle traffic, her tires screeching as she swerved into the parking lot of the Nest, her co-working space downtown. Her dress hung like a costume gone wrong, her hair knotted in a frantic bun, her badge clipped to her purse like a lifeline. She swiped it at the glass doors. Access denied. She frowned, tried again. Denied. A security guard, coffee in hand, wandered over. "Ma'am, can I help you?" he asked, his tone polite but firm. "I think my badge is glitched," Emily said, forcing her customer service smile. "It's Emily Clark, Suite 410. Can you reset it?" The guard checked his tablet, then squinted. "You're Emily. Got a note here. Access revoked this morning. Building policy. Non-listed individuals need to be escorted off." "Revoked by who?" she demanded, her voice rising. "I pay for that suite. Says here, revoked by the controlling member of the leaseholder entity," he replied, unmoved. Her jaw twitched. She didn't own the lease. Clark Concepts LLC did, the company I'd set up 4 years ago to manage her business expenses. I held 51%, a detail she'd never bothered to check. At 1:40 a.m., I'd filed the paperwork to transfer full management to myself. By 2 a.m., I'd contacted the Nest's admin portal, submitted my docs, and cut her access. It was like deleting a user profile, clean, efficient, final. "I need my files," Emily said, her voice tight. "Sensitive client work." "Not allowed to let you up," the guard cut in, glancing at a camera overhead. "Schedule a retrieval with the new account manager." He handed her a slip of paper. She snatched it, her eyes scanning the text. "James Clark, Managing Member, Clark Concepts LLC. Email, admin@clarktroll.com. Her fingers clenched, crumpling the paper. She'd lost the suite, the LLC, the domain, the brand, everything tied to her name. She stormed back to her car, her breathing heavy, her hands shaking. Her phone buzzed again. "Your Google business profile has been updated. New owner verified." She screamed, loud enough to trigger her smartwatch's crash alert. The irony wasn't lost on her, but she was too far gone to laugh. At 9:23 a.m., she pulled into an old Starbucks lot on the north side, one we used to visit when we still shared playlists and grocery lists. Her reflection in the car window was a mess. Hair limp, makeup streaked, eyes hollow. Her phone pinged with a text from me. "Check your private drive." 5 words, no accusations, just an invitation. She hesitated, staring at the message like it might burn her. Finally, she opened her cloud app, buried under folders labeled Travel Plans and Taxes 2021. 3 failed password attempts, then a recovery question. "What was your wedding song?" She got in, and what she saw wasn't a folder. It was a mirror. Timestamps from the last 6 months. Screenshots of her chats with Matthew, dripping with contempt for me. "James is so gullible. Thinks I'm stressed." Receipts for hotel rooms, Uber trips, a flower delivery to herself while she texted me about work. And 1 folder, labeled for M, that she hadn't created. She opened it, her breath catching. A video loaded, Matthew in a hotel room but not with her. A younger woman, dark-haired, in a navy hoodie Emily used to lend out. The woman turned and Emily froze. It was Sarah, her old college friend, the one she'd cut off years ago after a falling out. Matthew kissed Sarah's shoulder, smirking at the camera. The footage ended, but the truth didn't. Emily wasn't his only sequel. Emily's world unraveled in pixels and paperwork, each thread pulled by her own hand, not mine. I'd only turned on the light to show her the stage she'd built. By 10:11 a.m., Emily sat alone in what used to be our home in Seattle's Capitol Hill, the morning light filtering through half-drawn curtains. Her emerald dress was gone, swapped for an old hoodie, mine, from years ago when we'd laughed over late-night coffee and shared dreams. Now it hung on her like a ghost, too big, too heavy. Her phone was dead, drained from endless failed logins and unanswered texts. Matthew was gone, predictably, vanishing with her backup phone. The one loaded with her contacts, passwords, and secrets she swore she'd never kept. Her empire, her brand, her carefully curated life. All locked behind a wall I'd built with a few lines of code and a signature. At 4:42 p.m., the doorbell rang. Emily, barefoot, mascara flaking like ash on her cheeks, peeked through the window. A man in a blazer stood on the porch, holding a thick envelope and a digital signature pad. Not a reporter, not a friend, worse, a process server. She opened the door on instinct, her hands trembling. He asked her name, handed her the pad. She signed, the stylus shaking, probably regretting it before the screen went dark. He gave her the envelope, said, "Time sensitive," and walked away without a glance. She didn't make it past the foyer. Slumping against the wall, she tore open the envelope, papers spilling like confetti from a ruined party. The first page, Notice of Digital Evidence Preservation. It outlined, in cold legal jargon, that all cloud-based content tied to her name, number, or IP was frozen pending review. Any attempt to delete or alter it could be considered tampering. Next, intent to divorce, filed at 8:02 a.m. that morning. Grounds, irreconcilable betrayal and concealment of secondary income. Then, an asset protection filing locking everything under Clark Concepts LLC, our home, her gallery's domain, even the car she drove, into a discretionary trust. She couldn't sell, transfer, or touch it without triggering a court audit. The clause wasn't new. It had sat in a file since 2017, signed and notarized, unread by her. The final document was a cease and desist, barring her from using my name, likeness, or any shared branding, past interviews, collaborative designs, even testimonials. If she tried to spin our marriage into a victim narrative online, she'd be in violation. Tucked inside, a yellow post-it note, my handwriting. You made your story public. I just changed the audience. Emily read it once, then again, her hands shaking. For the first time, it wasn't rage or panic in her eyes. It was fear. Raw, unshakable fear. Her name was still hers, technically, but the identity she'd built, creative director, feminist CEO, beacon of authenticity, was gone. Overwritten by her own lies. She curled against the wall, papers scattered like fallen leaves, her phone buzzing one last time before it died. A Google alert, influencer caught in scandal. CEO's double life exposed by husband's digital trail. Her brand, unapologetic and bold, was now a cautionary tale. At 12:02 p.m., her Instagram had detonated. Her verified account, bio still touting creative director at Empower Aesthetics, posted a message, scheduled by me the night before. It wasn't graphic, just damning. A compilation of her texts to Matthew, admitting her plans to leave, mocking me as gullible. Over 25,000 views and climbing. Her DMs flooded, former clients, old friends, even her high school mentor, all horrified, confused, or worse, curious. Her Shopify storefront was locked, Stripe froze her payouts, and her biggest sponsor, Green Moss Living, dropped her with a public statement. Effective immediately, we are discontinuing all partnerships with Emily Clark due to brand value violations. She tried to delete the post, but I'd revoked her access. The account wasn't hers anymore. Matthew? Vanished. No goodbye, no trace, just like 12 years ago. But this time he'd taken her backup phone, her digital lifeline. She didn't realize he'd been playing her too, harvesting her secrets for his own leverage. I'd seen it in the video with Sarah, her old friend, his smirk, his game. Emily wasn't his endgame. She was just a chapter. Meanwhile, I sat in a rented cabin in Oregon's Cascade Mountains, 5 counties away. The air was crisp, the silence unbroken except for the rustle of pine needles. Wrapped in a wool blanket, I sipped a beer, cold, sharp, the first I'd tasted in years without the bitter edge of stress. My phone was on silent, my laptop closed, the servers hum a distant memory. I'd spent months watching her patterns, building systems to catch her lies, but now I was done. One last file had loaded on her cloud drive, unprompted. A photo time-stamped from a cheap hotel bar. Emily and Matthew, arms linked, smiling for a selfie. But someone, maybe me, maybe just the truth, had edited it. Bold text at the bottom, archived for accountability. She stared at it, her scream echoing through the empty house as her laptop hit the floor, the screen splintering. It didn't matter. The story was already out, and it wasn't hers to rewrite. For the first time in 20 years, I slept without dreams of betrayal. The mountains stood silent, and so did I,